Mr. Chair, we're ready to go.
All right, and we have our quorum?
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 5 members and you have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we will begin. Good evening and welcome to the September 21st, 2021 Planning Commission meeting. To all of you attending virtually, thank you for joining us. Please know that we want to hear from you. If you're in the audience and you would like to address the commission during public comment for an item on the agenda, there are 2 options. For those of you online using Zoom, please use the raise your hand button at the top of the screen. When it is your turn to speak, you will be unmuted and given 3 minutes to address the commission. If you're joining us by telephone, you may address the commission by pressing *9 when it is your turn to speak. You will be unmuted and given 3 minutes to address the commission as well. Please note that you may only speak once per agenda item. All right, Pamela, roll call, please.
Of course. Chair Biasotti.
Here.
Vice Chair Harmon.
Here.
Commissioner Durazo.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson is absent. Commissioner Lithing.
Here.
Commissioner Madden is also absent tonight. Commissioner Morgan.
Here.
You have 5 members and you have a quorum.
Thank you. Commissioner Morgan, would you be so kind as to lead us in the pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Item 1, approval of minutes. There are none. Item 2, public comments for items not on the agenda. Once again, for Zoom users, please use the raise your hand feature, and for those on the phone, *9. And this is for anyone who wants to address the commission for items not on the agenda. Pamela, do we have anyone in the audience?
We do. We have a speaker, Paul Wapinski. Ernest, can you allow Paul to speak? And also start doing the countdown. Thank you.
3-minute timer. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I recently listened to the council meeting where ABAG, the Association of Bay Area Governments, I think that's what the acronym stands for, required 3,000 more housing units to be put in San Bruno. So I wrote to him and asked him a question of where's all this water going to come from, since no dams have been brought, or reservoirs have been built in California since the 1970s. And I got this long-winded 1.5-page response back that didn't answer the question. So if my question is, can somebody tell me who the San Bruno city representative to ABAG is so that I could speak to them? The second thing is, I would like the Planning Commission to study the recently signed into law SB 9 and 10 and find out how that's going to affect us, specifically the multiple unit structures that can be built in single family housing areas. And the last thing I got a comment, I was wondering if whoever runs the website for the city for new construction and buildings, if they could kind of model it off the South San Francisco website. It's really nice. It's got a map that's outlined. You click on it, it gives you all the information about the project in one spot, and it's really user friendly. So I think that's something that would be really advantageous for people who don't have a lot of time to do research. They can just click and get all the information in one spot. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for your comments. And we will address those issues. Item 3, announcements of conflicts of interest. Is there anyone with a conflict this evening?
I don't believe so, Mr. Chair. You're good to go.
Okay. Then we'll move on to item 4, which is public hearings. 271 El Camino Real. This is a request for an architectural review permit and tentative tract map to construct a 3-story multifamily residential building with 23 condominium units of basement parking. This item was continued from September 7th, 2021. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair. bear with me while I get things set up real quickly. Okay. Good evening, commissioners. Michael Smith, Planning Department staff. So the project before you is 271 El Camino Real. The project site is located on the west side of El Camino Real between Crystal Springs Road and San Felipe Avenue. The site is approximately 0.57 acres and is comprised of 6 contiguous parcels. While most of the project site fronts on El Camino Real, the site includes a narrow parcel that has frontage on Linden Avenue at the rear to the west. The subject site is presently vacant and fenced off, but was formerly occupied by a restaurant, an attached single-family dwelling, and a surface parking lot that were demolished in 2015. There are 10 mature trees, including 5 heritage trees, and a number of shrubs present on the site. There is a wide variety of surrounding land uses, ranging from single-family and multifamily residential in all directions, and various commercial businesses along El Camino Real. The project site has a general plan land use designation of multi-use with a residential focus and is zoned MXR, which is multi-use with a residential focus. And please note that this is one of the site, this is part of the rezoning efforts from April of this year. So, gave you a little bit of the project background. I'm going to go into the project description, cover the entitlement process, touch on the environmental review, the development standards for the site, and give you a project analysis, and then cover the public outreach that was done, and wrap up with the staff recommendation. So the subject site is shallow and wide. It is approximately 180 feet of frontage on El Camino Real. The subject site is fairly flat with a 5 to 6 foot change in elevation at the narrow, and is a very narrow, and is not very deep. It also has a leg that goes all the way back to Linden Avenue at the rear and has the appearance of like a single family lot. Sorry, that yellow line is not quite on top of the subject property. I can fix that, but it is shown correctly in your staff report. So the proposal is to construct a 3-story, approximately 39,600 square foot, which doesn't include the basement, condominium complex that would provide 3 affordable housing units and 20 market rate units for a total of 23 total units. The complex would be divided into 2 sections, with the northwest section dedicated to townhouses and the southwest section dedicated to condominiums or apartments. The complex at its tallest point would be 48 feet 2 inches in height, and that's measured to the highest point, which is the tower in the middle of the complex.
Michael, can I pause you? Sorry.
Sure.
We're not seeing your slide moving. You're still on the cover slide. And then there's actually 2 slides. So we see the cover slide and then your next slide. You may have to what'd you call it? There you go. Reshare your screen.
Sure. I'm gonna just forego that for right now, and because I know that I've spoken with the project architect, and he's done a really good slideshow of the project. So I'm having trouble toggling back and forth between the 2 and the staff report. So I'm just gonna stick to the presentation portion. So where I left off was the height of the building is 48 feet 2 inches in height, and I talked about the apartments being on the southern section and the townhouses being on the northern section. And there's approximately 4,955 square feet of common lobby space, which will be provided within the complex, and that includes all the walkways. In total, there's going to be 13 two-bedroom units and 10 three-bedroom units, again, for a total of 23 total units. Vehicle access to this complex would be provided via a new right turn in and right turn out driveway on El Camino Real at the northern corner of the project site. The driveway would connect to a 50 space below grade parking garage that would be approximately 17,752 square feet. The below grade parking garage would provide 4 guest spaces and 46 residential spaces, including 2 electrical vehicle spaces and 3 ADA spaces and 1 motorcycle parking space. The parking garage would be equipped with 12 car lifts, which would handle 24 parking spaces. 6 short-term bicycle parking spaces would be provided adjacent to the ground floor lobby and 6 long-term spaces in the subsurface garage. A little bit about the design of the building. The building is designed to evoke a modern Mediterranean architectural style with light earth tone colored stucco and red tiled pitch roof being the dominant design cues. Additionally, there are no other buildings along the corridor that evoke a Mediterranean architectural style, but there are several buildings that have the same type of material, which is stucco. And for that reason, we feel like this would be harmonious. Also, the colors of the building would be very neutral and earth tone colors. As far as the affordable housing, this project is subject to the city's affordable housing requirement of 15% of the total units as affordable. So for this project, we're looking at two at the moderate level and 1 at the low level. And that would meet the total 15% affordable housing requirement. And that gets enforced on the project as after this, they are required to have a affordable housing agreement with the city. And the affordable housing plan is also attached to the staff report if you want to take a closer look at that. And those units would be affordable for a period of 45 years. A little bit about the entitlement process. So the project requires an architectural review permit for a new construction of a building that's visible from the public right-of-way, and also a tentative tract map. That tentative tract map is for, That tentative tract map is for the merger of all the 6 underlying parcels that comprise the development site, and also for the creation of residential condominiums. So this project was reviewed by the city's architectural peer review consultant, Larry Cannon, and his analysis is included as a memo to the staff report. He expressed a few concerns in a few key areas, and so I'm going to briefly touch on some of those and how they were addressed in the project. So some of his concerns, and I'm just going to more or less list them, is the elevator location was not very convenient, and these are the functional issues. So I broke these up into 2 categories: the functional issues and then the design issues. Accessing the townhomes from the garage requires entering from the sidewalk. So if you go down to the garage and park your car, you do have to come back out to the sidewalk and through your front door. The townhome requires several flights to reach the basement parking. The parallel parking requires several turning movements in the garage. The parking stacker system requires removal of the lower car before the upper car can exit. And the open garage ventilation at the rear doesn't allow for landscaping to buffer the building. Some of his design comments included the front, he thought the front elevation was very repetitious and lacking in unit identity. The rear townhouse elevation wasn't symmetrical. He thought that the roof pitch was too shallow and needed to be steepened. And that the southern portion kind of lacked a little bit of cohesion. And he thought that the primary elevation or entries, excuse me, could have been a little stronger, and that the tower element in the middle, which used to be two tower elements, was a little awkward. So in response, a lot of changes were made to the project, and that is the project that you see before you here tonight. And so I'm just going to focus on the key as opposed to addressing all of those, because some of the more functional issues were not addressed for reasons stated in the staff report. But some of the design issues I think are worth noting. So the original setback the original rear setback was open to the rear of the garage, and so it was natural ventilation for the garage. So that has now been closed off and created kind of a podium over the basement, and that allowed for plantings to be in the 10-foot rear setback. And so that's added to the project, and within that setback, the plantings would be bamboo, which will grow nice and tall and provide a bit of a buffer between the backside of the building and the neighbors on Linden Avenue to the west. Other key differences: if you look at the rear elevation, there was a lot done to that. There used to be catwalks that kind of for the apartment portion, which is on the southern side of the building. Those catwalks are now gone, and he's created some nice elements there to break that up. And so the main point is you don't see like a continuous railing across the back, kind of like you do for a hotel or say motel. So that was another key change. And then also as far as the design, the tower element, which used to be a separate tower for the elevator and a separate tower for the stair, that was consolidated into one tower element, which looks very nice. And then there was also a lot of massaging of the front elevation, and so that just kind of highlights how the architectural review process went with the outside design consultant, and how the project benefited as a result and resulted in the project that you see before you tonight. As far as public outreach, the applicant did host a neighborhood meeting. This was done at the Bay Area Entrepreneur Center, and it was done close to when the project was submitted to the city, so back in 2017. And so the project was not set as much, and so the input had a big impact on the project. And one of the key things that came back from that meeting was about the height of the building, but also just simply about all the windows at the back and the proximity to, again, the neighbors on Linden Avenue, and whether or not anything could be done to kind of create that separation in that zone right there. And so again, that's where we got the landscaping and the bamboo. As far as legal notice, we did mail out notices for this meeting tonight to the neighbors property owners within 300 feet. And it was also published in the San Mateo Daily Journal. Staff received one email correspondence from a neighbor on Linden Avenue during this time, who expressed concern about the building blocking his view and potential parking impacts from residents parking on Linden Avenue and trying to enter the building from the open space on Linden Avenue at the rear. The response to that was that views are not protected, as you well know. And that also a key thing here is that El Camino is at a slightly lower elevation than Linden Avenue. And so just that elevation helps to kind of mitigate the height of the building relative to the single family dwellings at the rear. And I think there's about a 6 to 7 foot elevation difference. So again, the building is going to be 48 feet at its highest point, and that complies with the 50-foot 3-story height limit, and it is only 3 stories above grade. And then also regarding the parking, we do have a condition of approval on this project, as you've seen on other projects, which is that if ever the city adopts a residential permit parking program in that neighbor, the building residents could not participate in that program. So the Planning Commission is the final approval body for this project, and and staff is recommending that the Planning Commission adopt the resolutions that are attached to the staff report. One, approving the proposed categorical exemption for the project, which resulted in a a categorical exemption pursuant to section 15332, which is the infill exemption for an urban infill project. And then the second resolution is for the architect, that resolution also includes the architectural review permit approval. The second resolution is for the tentative tract map. And again, that tentative tract map is to merge the 6 existing parcels that comprise the development site and to create residential condominiums. And so again, we're recommending that you adopt those resolutions based on findings 1 through 11 in the staff report, and the conditions of approval are also attached to those resolutions. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Michael. That was a nice presentation. Well done. Is there anyone on the commission with questions for Michael? Comments, questions, anyone?
Sure, I see one. Can you see him, Chair?
No, I only see him.
Okay. Do you want me to, is it all right if I call him out?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Commissioner Harmon, Vice Chair Harmon.
Sure, thank you. I had a couple questions. One was, is this that west garden that connects to Linden? Kind of keying off the comments about water use earlier, it looks to me like this is largely using native plants. Are we expecting this to be xeriscape to the point that we should have minimal water demand to maintain the garden?
Yeah, that is the goal, and that is the requirement through the conditions of approval. Yeah.
Great. Okay. And my second question about that was, is that gated, or is that something that will be available for just sort of people in the neighborhood to, sit down, have a snack, and possibly, I don't know if the lobby is open in a way that it's sort of gated off the sides, but to the extent that people in the neighborhood can, I don't know if that becomes a route that they can cut through to El Camino.
Yeah, as proposed, it is proposed to be gated, and so it would be, that space would be only for the residents of the building. One of the key things we thought about in developing this project was, what do we do with that leg in the back? It is technically not its own lot. It is connected to a portion that extends all the way to El Camino Real. And the code as it's written right now does not allow us to subdivide that off as a substandard lot, because it would have been only 33 feet wide. And then it also didn't make sense to extend the building back onto that lot. It would have been kind of awkward having that kind of stick out in the single family zone. So we really thought that this was the best approach. As of right now, that open space would be just open space for the residents of the building.
And I know there are concerns with, given that the obviously be maintained by the building, the sort of gating it, not having random people able to wander through probably makes it easier for them. But I know some cities, I forget, there's some cute acronym for it where you have a privately maintained public space at least part of the time, where it's
you
sort
almost
of
got it.
what's the term?
Popos.
Yes, popos. There we go. But yeah, so I don't know if it could be considered that this is available for, I mean, I don't know how much demand there would be before it, but even at least like during the day before sunset, if it's something that people can come through without it being completely keyed off, I feel like that, it offers some value to the neighborhood that makes it, something that they have a stake in. So I don't know. I don't love gated parks personally, as sort of a general principle. that I feel like open space should be for everybody in the vicinity. And my last concern, I guess, I mean, this is something that sort of I think needs to be discussed in an ongoing way and in a bigger way over the next 6 months to a year. If I'm reading the zoning right, this is the density is 40 units per acre for this zone type. And it's a 0.9 acre parcel. So in theory, this was zoned for 36 units. We're getting 23.
Sorry, 0.57
0.57
acres.
Did I read it wrong? I thought the total combined, does that include the park? Is that what I'm?
Yeah, the whole site is 0.57.
Huh.
So according to our general plan and according to the zoning, it is maxed out as far as density. Yeah.
That is excellent then. Because yeah, I could swear I saw like a 0.9 total somewhere, but maybe I misread something. Okay. But yeah, I mean, that's the concern I was going to bring up, is that if it's not maxed out, we are setting ourselves up for problems in the future because of the expected yield calculations that are required in the next round of housing elements. But if we are maxing it out, then great. That answers my question.
Okay.
Through the chair, just to add on to that, I do also recall reading in the staff report it was a 0.9 something. And I'm guessing that was probably a typo if Michael recalls the lot being in the 0.5s. But I do also remember doing that math in my head and going,
Yeah, the lot is about 23,000 and change square feet. But I'll take a look. I'll take a look and see if I can find that 0.9.
Okay, thank you.
Morgan?
Yeah, Michael, the Canon Design Group were talking about the stacked parking in the basement or in the garage, and they were suggesting that there would be a pit so that the lower car would not have to be removed if the upper car wanted to get out. And I'm wondering, was that suggestion incorporated, or will there be no pit, which would be very awkward?
Yeah, so there are a number of different types of car lifts, and this one does require the bottom car to be moved out before the top car can be brought down. And so how we talked to the applicant about whether or not they could do a pit. It would cost a lot more money to do that pit, and so creatively we thought maybe the best way to deal with it, and I think it was also recommended in the initial study, would be to facilitate parking is to assign each car lift to the same household, so that you're not trying to coordinate car movements across households, but you're all within in the same household trying to do that. And so hopefully that doesn't cause as great an issue as doesn't cause like a big issue.
That makes sense. I was figuring that, if it was a neighbor's car and they're at work or whatever, and, obviously for a complex that size, there probably won't be somebody in full-time attendance there. So the neighbors would have to figure it out for themselves. But, I mean, if it's assigned to the same household, that would probably cover, each person could have keys for both cars and it could work out. The only other comment I have is that it's a pity that the townhouses don't have access to the direct access to the garage and also to the elevator, because they'd be carrying groceries up 2 floors in some cases. Am I right in that?
Yes, you are correct, and that was one of the things that Larry Cannon mentioned in his review. Is that access piece. If you want maybe a more explanation on that, maybe the project architect who's going to do his presentation after me can kind of answer that, because I know it was very challenging to design this site because it is so shallow.
It's a very tight site, and
yeah.
The development looks beautiful. They've done a great job with a very limited space, and I know there's problems attached to that. So Anyway, you've answered my questions. Thank you.
Were there any other, Commissioner Harmon, please?
I had a follow-up on Val's point about the parking. I don't know if there has been any consideration of simply replacing some of the parking dedicated to individual households with something like a car share, because that I know I've read some recent examples in the South Bay where they've had pretty significant success with reducing the need for sort of total cars spaces dedicated per household. But obviously, like, there's variance if it's a very small number, but once you get to even 3 or 4, it starts if you have 3 or 4 spaces that are car share, it starts to displace, 12, 16, 20 needed cars on an individual basis. And I don't know if that's something that has been investigated. It might be interesting for the city to look at establishing an ongoing relationship with some car share vendor that we can then, sort of hook up with projects.
Yeah, I believe that our new parking ordinance that was passed last year does allow for car share spaces to be added and still considered residential parking spaces. However, it doesn't really spell out how to navigate that. So it's really more upon the applicant if they wanted to, think about that particular, approaching the parking that way to present that to the city, and then they would, if it was approved by the commission, they would be responsible for then reaching out to the different car shares and kind of making that arrangement.
Okay. Do we have any other questions or comments for staff? Kelly, please.
Oh, I did have one question, and maybe it's better asked of the applicant. But I was interested in learning what the practical difference is between the townhomes and the condominiums, because on the plans that I was looking at, I was having a difficult time discerning the difference between the two.
Yeah, I will let the architect answer that question. I know what early on in the process they had intended to sell the townhomes as condominiums and keep the apartments as rentals, but I think right now they're looking at condoing the whole thing. And yeah, so I'll let the architect talk about what the physical difference is between the two types.
Thank you.
Commissioner Durazo, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Not at this point.
Okay, thank you. All right, Michael, I guess the next thing would be for the applicant.
All right, Larry, are you ready to do your presentation now?
Oh. Yes, Michael, I think you covered most of it already. Yeah.
You can kind of walk them through the design as we talked about. So I think you have a very good presentation, and I wasn't really able to share mine, so I think that yours could be very helpful. Sure.
Let me see if I can share my screen here. Good. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Right. So I think Michael has concluded a lot of elements in the design elements already. I won't bore you with going over this again, but I'll just go straight to response commissioner's question. The site is 25,000 square foot, 25,303 to be exact. So it's 0.57 acres. So we are maxing out with our units. So that was the first answer. And I want to show you a little bit about this project history that we did. The project started back in 2015, where there was a vacant lot. The property is relatively flat in topography. It has been vacant for a period of time. The project will not displace any tenants or occupants. It's a vacant lot. With the 2015, we went through, Michael has been always next to us and guiding through us with this design process. But during this process, we did have quite a bit of changes, including zoning changes, including directors change, including planners change. So we finally, this is, if you see the screen, these are few samples that you see how building was evolves in terms of architectural design. So the lake that Michael was referring is really the green open space. And as of it right now, we are planning to be gated on this. However, the applicants, the owners, open to the idea that this can be open to the public if that is something that commissioner would consider. The applicant is open to the idea. The project consists of 4 parts. The north, which is on the right-hand side, it's the blue portion, that's 8 townhouses. And I know that's a little confusing. I will have a little section to show you a little bit later. So there are 8 townhouses on the right-hand side. In the middle, it's the yellow portion that is a courtyard and common area. There's a lake, which is green open garden. We call it green belt. And then there are 15 condos to your left-hand side. That is the south portion of the project. Parkings, that was one of the questions raised. We have total of 49 parkings. We have 26 regular on-grade parkings. We have 24 mechanical parkings. Commissioner Morgan was asking about these lift parkings. The one that sunken down to the ground requires a lot more deep for the car to pick it up first and then go up and down. We do not have this kind of luxury in the site like this. We are only about, we only have about 60 to 80 feet, depending on where we are, but this is a very long and narrow site. So we don't have a luxury to have attendant mechanical lift parkings. That's probably the only solution we have. So we are proposing a 24 mechanical lift parkings. That's a blue sections. The yellow is a 26 regular parkings. There are 4 of them. It's for the guests. So we have a little extra, we have 1 extra parking space. So to respond to how the way that townhouses work is this. Each townhouse it occupies 1.5 levels. If you see the section on the bottom left, the yellow, it's 1 townhouse. It's 1 unit. The blue, that's another one. So the yellow one will come from El Camino Real. There's the stairs coming from El Camino Real from the sidewalk. However, the upper unit, that's the blue section, will have the stairs going to a 2nd floor. They will enter from the 2nd floor. So their front door is actually on the 2nd floor. Their main entrance is on the 2nd floor. That's how townhouse works. So it's 1.5 level. They're split in the 2nd floor. So the apartments, and again, those are all condos. I might confuse you. I'm sorry. We call it townhouse, just to distinguish different styles of design. But they are all condos. They are all condos. On the left-hand side, which is the southern portion, it's a more typical condo. They are flat. They are ranging from 1,000 square foot to 1,560 square foot. They have a balcony, a very decent size of balcony. So they all have a very decent size of balcony here. That's a green section. To go back to Commissioner Herman's comments, we do propose a very earth tone, water conservative, a very water friendly plants throughout the project. Although open space is not a requirement, we feel it is an important element to provide green and open space to breathe in the urban settings. So this site is heavily vegetated. We propose different types of trees, landscape and hardscape. Michael touched upon a little bit about materials. The color and material selections are earth tone oriented. We like the project to blend in with the adjacent context. We are proposing high quality stone veneers, ceramic roof tiles, windows, louvers, and screens. Affordable housing, Michael touched upon this too. So we are proposing 3 affordable housing units according to the Housing Inclusionary Act. However, we are not asking for any concessions in this project here. All the design met zoning standards, including building heights, setback, parking requirements. No waivers and no concession from density bonus law is requested on this project. So, dear commissioners, it's a long and somehow a little struggling process since 2015. So we sincerely ask your consideration to approve this project. I hope I answer most of the questions, and I'm open for any questions if there's any.
Thank you very much. That was a nice presentation.
Thank you.
Commissioners, do we have any questions for the applicant?
Through the chair? Oh, I'm sorry. I think Commissioner Lathan's hand was up first.
It's okay. Go ahead. You might ask my question.
How do you know? Question, Mr. Wang. I think I saw that 50 parking spaces were provided, 49 were required. Yeah, how many guest parking spaces would be available for folks who come to visit for? And I guess I'm kind of echoing one of the comments that was referenced. I think it came through the form of an email or some kind of correspondence with the city. Consideration of how this might impact parking on the street if there's only 4 guest parking spaces. I know from the staff report and the pictures, there's a number of businesses up and down the street. Is there any kind of plan or consideration of how if it's only 4 guest parking spaces, how that overflow might impact the folks on the street?
Larry, you're muted.
The Wang, you're muted.
Okay, sorry about that. Yes, that's a consideration. We have 23 apartments units here. So we are leaving this 1 extra parking, which can be used as guest parking. We are thinking, again, having that small green belt, a lake from the neighbors. So that could be an access point that if any guests, they can utilize not just on El Camino, they can park on the west portion of the project, which they have a lot more parking spaces available. So that is a gated community that can be opened through a button. They can open that gate if the guest is coming from the west portion of the project. So they can enter from the garden as well.
Thank you.
Did it answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Kelly, I believe you are next.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of a change from Commissioner Durazo's question. You were right. I have, well, I'll start with a seemingly more important thing. The vibration monitoring plan. I've heard in other public comment that on other projects, neighboring property owners have discovered cracking and damage to their homes with high intensity vibration associated with the construction. And it just got me thinking about this vibration mitigation plan, and I thought that was very interesting. And I'm certain that the adjacent property owners would be interested in participating in that. And I was curious what that would look like for the property owners so that they can have their property evaluated. And I understand it, I think it was a 25-foot distance from the construction. But yeah, I was just wondering how that monitoring plan could be accessed.
Commissioner Lethan, if I may, I think that question might be best answered by our environmental consultants. And I did forget to mention that there's a team of people behind this project. So our environmental consultants on this are David J. Powers and Associates. And with us tonight, we have Matthew Moore and Natalie Noyes, and they were assisting on the preparation of the environmental document for this project. And so what you just read was a mitigation measure that came from their environmental document.
Great. Are they going to be available for questions now or later?
Sure. Matthew, I see you there. Are you available to answer that question now? Yeah, you're muted or something. Still can't hear you.
Is that better?
That is better.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. Sure. So the construction vibration monitoring plan, it does state that final point that there will be a person who is responsible for registering and investigating claims of excessive vibration, and the contact information of said designee will be clearly posted on the construction site. And so my understanding is that residents will be provided with that contact information via the posting on the site, and will be able to contact the designee and request investigation for any such vibration issues.
Relating to that, as I was reading, and again, there was a lot to read, so I didn't get to read every single letter. But as I recall, I believe that the document talked about having kind of a pre-construction evaluation of buildings that were, I think, within 25 feet of the subject property. I'm just wondering, if somebody says, the tile in my shower has cracked, it seems to me that they should have some sort of a inspection or something. And I think that was in the monitoring plan, but I just wanted to check.
I know there is a post-construction survey on structures where either monitoring or complaints have been received about high vibration 2. And then, that's correct, yes. All structures located within 25 feet, there will be a documentation prior to, during, and after the construction activities. The documentation will include a photo survey, an elevation survey, and a crack monitoring survey prior to any construction activity, and then also in regular intervals during construction and after project completion, as I mentioned earlier. And as regards to interior damage, the documentation will include internal and external crack monitoring and structures, settlement, and distress, and shall document the condition of foundations, walls, and other structural elements.
Okay, that's really good to know. I will ponder that. Thank you.
May I interrupt this a little bit, Matthew? Just to add on Matthew's point, what is usually done is a pre-construction survey, which they put marks on the buildings, neighborhood buildings, and then a post-construction survey after the construction is done. So they will come back and survey those points one more time to see if there are any settlement or any changes in elevations that is done. And so that's commonly done, and that's what Matthew was suggesting in his report.
Thank you. And it looked also in the report that there are restrictions about the high impact vibration machinery, that some of them are just not allowed and others are recommended. Is that right?
Certain activities like pile driving, which are the most commonly used, or I mean the highest generating vibration equipment, will not be used in this project. At the time of our analysis, I don't believe that we had like a specific construction item list, but we did we did look at the vibration levels used with the equipment that was anticipated to be used during the project, and we found that the mitigation would reduce it below the Caltrans vibration thresholds. And this equipment might include clam shovels, vibratory rollers, hoe rams, bulldozers, things of that nature, jackhammers. But additionally, a list of heavy construction equipment used in the project and the duration of the equipment used will be submitted by the contractor, and it would be used to limit the location or limit the use of that equipment in proximity to the structures where it was identified there was a potential exceedance of the Caltrans vibration limits.
Good. I'm glad to hear that, because I just looking at the aerial view, there seems to be some structures that are just right there on the fence line, and I think that could have a significant impact on the homeowners. And I just wanted to make sure that they will be reached out to and that they will be made aware of the plans and be able to take advantage of these evaluations.
And just to add on Matthew's point, we do have a soil report. The soil report recommends a mat foundation system. So as far as the information we have right now, it's a mat foundation system, no pile driven, no auger. So that's the initial report from the soil report.
Great, thank you very much.
Great. Are there any other commissioners with questions? Please speak up because I can't see anybody's hands.
I still have one more that's completely unrelated to my first question, and then I'll go away. Is that okay?
Please go ahead.
Okay. The last one is the bamboo, and I'm really pleased that we're looking at some natural solutions to providing a visual buffer between the single family homes on Linden and this taller building. I think that's wonderful. My one concern is bamboos can be highly invasive, and I was looking up some of the species that were noted in the report. It looked like they were not invasive. Sorry, I have a really big bug flying near me. If I freak out, that's what it is. It's a big bug. But I just wanted to make sure that the bamboo is going to be non-invasive, and whether there might be any agreeable alternatives to bamboo, especially considering bamboo is not really in keeping with the Mediterranean aesthetics. And also, I think in section, I saw that the area that might be containing that landscaping, I think had a foundation. It was like enclosed, had a foundation and a retaining wall around it. But I just have concerns about. I have experience with bamboo just destroying neighboring foundations, and I just want to make sure that that's not a risk here.
Larry, do you want to answer that question? Sorry.
Sure. So they are actually contained in the structural concrete containers. They will be roof-proofing and waterproofing on this. Yes, you are right. I have a bamboo in my house. It's very invasive. So what the design is really using a concrete structure to contain the bamboo with roof-proofing material and waterproofing materials go around those bamboo. And the bamboo was actually a recommendation from Larry Cannon, if I remember this correctly.
Yeah, I saw that, and I kind of gasped and, I'm like, oh, bamboo. I did, however, look at the species that was in it's on the screen, but it's too small for me to read. The variety that was in there was considered a clumping and less invasive or non-invasive species. I just want to make sure that you're really going to stick to it. And if it's unavailable, not select one that is invasive, because I've seen the roots bust through concrete containers and do a lot of destruction.
Yes, we can ensure that the bamboo that is planted is consistent with what is noted in the plans right now.
Great, thank you. And also maybe somebody with more education than a Google search can just verify that it's not this invasive business that could wreak havoc.
Thank you, Kelly. Are there any other commissioners that have questions or comments?
I think there's myself and Val.
Please.
Yeah, the clumping bamboo versus running bamboo. I've been in a house where we had a neighbor with running bamboo as well, and it's a bad scene, but the clumping should be fine. I was wondering if there is a slide or diagram that illustrates what is happening with, there was an anticipation that we would have a restricted parking situation along El Camino here, and in order to facilitate garbage pickup, and I just wondered, I did not find in the deck a diagram of sort of like how many spaces we end up there and what the approximate availability of that is. I would think that that would also function effectively as guest parking most of the time, that we'd have like a dozen. I mean, it's a pretty long stretch that maybe some of that's reserved for pickup, drop off, some sort of short term, but I would think we should have some spaces up there that would be available for guests most of the time.
Yeah, let me answer that question. So that kind of came up late in the process that we're going to need an area to put the trash on pickup days so that it's not within the right of way, either the travel lane or the sidewalk. So so we have a condition of approval that does require that that we have to take a look at this a little bit closer, and if a zone is needed to place the cans, then TSPC review and approval will be required. And then in addition to that, it would require a Caltrans encroachment permit. And whether or not that space could be used flexibly when not being used for pickup of the cans on garbage day, I think it's something we'll have to work out through the process. I mean, I don't see why not, but I think it's something we're gonna have to work out through that TSPC process.
Can I clarify? Do you know sort of that area is currently parkable? I believe. I think I glanced at like Google Street View, and there were cars parked in it.
Yes, most of that area of the frontage along this property is parkable.
And so, is the expectation then that we might be looking at sort of everybody putting out their own garbage on their El Camino side of their house, and so we've been talking about clearing the entire space for garbage day, or are we expecting to consolidate down to a couple of larger containers that the truck would pull in through like a temporary pickup drop-off area?
These would be the larger containers that the trucks would pull in for a larger pickup drop-off area. They would not be the small toters that you see, the residential toters. The issue that we had to work through was that this is a basement, and they will not do what they call, Recology will not do back service to a basement and push those large cans up a driveway so the building operator or manager has to do that on those garbage days. But how do you time that with making sure that they don't spend any time out in the right of way? You know, so we're still trying to work through that, and that's why we're looking at potentially a space to put them at.
Dedicated garbage elevator.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Morgan.
Yeah, last question. Well, for me anyway. Talking about vibration, we're not going down very deep with the excavations, are we? It looks like it's only going to be about maybe 8 feet below grade in the front and maybe 10 feet below grade at the back, something like that.
That's correct.
Right. Okay. And one last question, it's just interest. When you talk about monitoring maybe cracks in existing buildings for subsidence, do we still use a glass strip over the cracks?
Larry, that's definitely a building code question, so I won't be able to answer that, but potentially Larry will.
Sorry, can you repeat that question one more time?
Yeah, if there are existing cracks in the stucco in the existing buildings at the back, and you want to monitor those, do you still use a glass strip over the crack that breaks if there's any subsidence?
So usually the document is by photos. So they will do a photo survey first.
Okay.
Right. So again, a consultant will be hired at this point at the building construction document stage. A photo, I think Matthew mentioned this, it will be a photo survey first, which take all the pictures, and then there will be elevation survey, which mark on the building elevations.
Oh, it's just
the settlement. Right.
Yeah, they just mark a line on it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, years ago they used to stick a glass strip across the crack, and if the glass broke, obviously that there was subsidence. They used to call them telltales.
I see.
Anyway, that's okay. Just going back in history.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So I want to go back to a little bit about that garbage pickup that Michael was mentioning a little bit. We have spoken to Ecology, and this went back and forth a few times to Ecology. We did have a consent from Ecology that the garbage will be temporarily parked on El Camino, and that was once a week basis, just like all the neighbors. Those will be bigger containers, and if you see 8.5 on your package, which if you can see on the screen now, the truck will not pick it up, but truck will park next on El Camino Real and then lift the containers and dump into the garbage trucks. So if you see that A5.0, that was a garbage plan discussed with planning department and also discussed with Ecology. So the more details on the garbage pick it up.
Thank you. Any other commission questions for the architects or the staff? Michael, can you help me out here? I don't see any faces or screens.
Yeah, so I guess we should open it up to public comment right now. Sorry, there's no, sorry. Commissioner Morgan, do you still have a question?
No, I don't have any questions. I should have taken down my hand.
Okay, thank you. So I don't see any more questions.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, we'll open it up to the public. Once again, for Zoom users at home, please use the raise your hand feature. And for those using the phone, it's *9. And Pamela, Michael, do we have anybody out there?
We do. So Ernest, I think we just brought Stephanie in.
Right, so we have two hands. Ernest, if you can allow Stephanie L to speak, that'll be great.
And just
Larry, can you take your screen down? Thank you.
And just as a reminder, before we get to the public, that you have 3 minutes and you're allowed one time per item. So, if you would please.
Go ahead, Stephanie. You can speak now.
Ernest, you might have to unmute her. I guess we're having a bit of a technical issue. Ernest, if you are able, can you maybe ask Paul Wipensky to speak? And Stephanie, we're asking, so a question has been asked for you to allow yourself to speak. So
hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Stephanie, go ahead.
Oh, yes. Hold on, let me just grab me. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect, great. I'm actually a property owner for a house in Linden Avenue, and I guess a little bit disappointed. I was just hearing through the past hour that there have been lots of communication ever backing up since 2017. That the neighbors in the area were notified. That was never the case. I was a property owner. I have never heard of this project until I got the notification. And even on today's meeting, there was no way to really get access to the Zoom because I know it was postponed from the 7th. There was no notification of what that meeting was going to be. So just a little bit concerned about the communication, which actually dovetails into two questions. One is I know I heard about the vibration monitoring and how the houses will be checked before, during, and after. How will I, as a property owner, be notified of that? So I want to make sure I'm in the loop because I am concerned. My second biggest comment or question or concern is about congestion. I have lived on the London property before we became a property owner and a landlord, and parking is horrendous. It's a one-way, it's a very narrow street. There are cars lined up back and forth, and I'm concerned when I hear that the garden could be an entrance for guests, which would mean they could potentially park on the street as well. So I would love to know kind of what would be done about that. And then my third concern is just the height of the building. From what I'm hearing, for only excavating about 8 to 10 feet, that means it's going to be a 2-story building with, it's beautiful, don't get me wrong, but it seems really high compared to all the properties on Linden right behind it. So those are my 3 big concerns that I have.
Okay, Michael or Pamela, would you like to address those comments?
So I'll let Michael do the majority, but I'll address the noticing. So the item was continued from the September 7th meeting, and typically when an item was continued to a date certain, which is today, there's no additional notices required. We do apologize for the miscommunication, but the original meeting was published with notices sent to the neighbors, and the Planning Commission did take a motion to continue this item to today. And so technically, there's no requirement to provide additional notices to the neighbors. But I'm glad that, Stephanie, you made it and found us and are able to participate in today's meeting. And I'll leave the rest to Michael.
Sure. So regarding the parking congestion, so a couple things about the parking. This is a fairly well-parked project in general, and that each unit, 23, has at least 2 parking spaces per unit. On top of that, we have the guest spaces, which is 4 guest spaces. And then regarding the from the rear, so there is pedestrian access from the rear on Linden Avenue. It is not anticipated that people would use that as their primary entrance to get into the building. And again, we have this RPP provision, which I spoke about, which if this neighborhood does institute a residential parking permit program, that the folks that live in this building would not be able to participate in that. And so those are some of the safeguards that I see with this project that would help address that particular concern regarding the parking. And so if you're a visitor to this site, for instance, parking on Linden, you would have to essentially go around the whole block to get to the front door to where the visitor's entrance is. And so that's
and so that's because people need a code, right, to get into the back area.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've kind of settled on how we would control access to the rear. But if I was a new visitor to this building, I wouldn't think that I was going to exit or enter from the rear portion.
Got it. You'd be surprised. I think there's no way that a tenant that's holding that could potentially if it's a locked gate, they can give their visitor the code to get in, and because 4 parking spaces for 23 units, if you have one party, you would have 3 different guests potentially already. And what if 2 houses in there have decided to have a party on one day, right? So I think that's the biggest concern, that it could lead to overflow on Linden, and it's very congested already.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie, I think that's about the 3-minute mark. We're not seeing a clock, but thank you for your comments. Michael, was there anything else you wanted to address in that?
No. I mean, yes, there probably are situations where there's going to be more than 4 visitors to any one household, and sometimes there will be people on the street, but that would not be the normal operations for this building.
Okay, thank you. Michael, do we have anyone else from the public that would like to speak to us?
Yes, we do. We have Paul Wapinski.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
First off, I'd like to give condolences to the lady who just called, because she'll never see a sunrise again. It's going to be blocked by that building. I got a question about, and hopefully this is the right time for this, because there's no room on there. I'm assuming that when this thing is built, that they're going to have to block a lane or multiple lanes on El Camino. So how long is it going to take to complete this project, and what are the mitigations for closing down all the lane for the traffic that we have in in San Bruno during this time? That's my question.
Paul, did you have anything else before we?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. When we get to staff, we'll get you an answer for that.
All right. I'm going to let Larry, the project architect, answer that question. He knows a little bit more about how this building will be constructed, but I don't envision that it's going to require shutting down El Camino Real. But Larry, if you could address that.
Not at this point. The only thing that needs to be brought into this property is really the new water line, new PG&E gas, and new PG&E electrical. Anything else, it's already on site. So we'll be redoing new sidewalk, by the way. So there's going to be a new sidewalk, but I do not anticipate there's any shutdown for El Camino Real at all. There will be probably 1 or 2 lane to be traffic control during the time of PG&E doing their construction, but I do not feel that El Camino will be shut down, will be impacted during the course of construction.
Thank you. Michael, do we have anyone else?
No, those were the only 2 speakers. I don't know if there's anyone else in attendance here tonight that wants to speak. You can raise your hand now. Chair, I don't see anyone else.
Okay. In that event, can we get a motion and a roll call vote to close the public hearing?
Of course. Chair Biasotti?
Aye.
Vice Chair Harmon?
Aye.
I'm sorry, were you asking for a motion, Mr. Chair? I think I went ahead.
Yeah, I can make the motion. I will move that we close the public hearing and move on.
Very good.
Second.
There you go. We have a motion in a second.
All right, so we're rewinding. So it was motion by Vice Chair Harmon and then second by Commissioner Lithin. Thank you. This is where I miss Madeline a lot. So let me take the vote. Chair Biasotti?
Aye.
Vice Chair Harmon?
Aye.
Commissioner Durazo?
Aye.
Commissioner Lithin?
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. So at this point, we'll bring the conversation back to the commission. Are there any more comments, questions, input, criticisms, anything? Anyone?
Through the chair. Prior to public comment, I guess I was a little confused, and maybe my question is for Mr. Wang. There's some discussion in the staff report about the loading zone for the trash and the process that needed to, that we needed to go through to get that process through traffic and safety and get those approvals. Then Mr. Wang seemed to say that there had been some tentative agreement with Recology and that those trash cans would be put out and would be picked up parallel El Camino. I'm just confused about what had been decided, what's been negotiated, and what is going to be the process for that moving forward. I guess I'm just concerned if we're already talking about the impact of parking, and then to have trash cans out there and in Recology, double parking to pick them up. If somebody can clarify what the confusion there is, it would be helpful.
Thank you.
So during the design process, we are required to contact Recology to come up with a garbage plan, which they will need us to calculate how many disposals, the frequency of a pickup, how the garbage is being disposed. So during the conversation with Recology, not just conversation, we do have a letter from Recology. I don't know if Michael attached that letter to the commissioners. 8.5 that was agreed upon with Recology that the garbage will be picked up once a week with containers, and that will be temporarily parked on El Camino Real during the pickup time. And after that, the property manager will physically push it down to the garbage enclosure area in the garage.
The property manager will bring out the trash cans, park them in El Camino. Recology will show up, double park on El Camino, and load them and take them away. Then the apartment manager will bring them back. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
What is the time frame? Has that been established of the pickup? Has that been once a week? At what time?
Once a week.
At what time?
Once a week.
What time of day was the frame established for the pickup?
That I don't know. I'm sorry, Commissioner. I don't know. We don't have that from Recology yet. We did not go into that depth of details. I guess that has to work together with Michael and your public work department, right? Right.
And then Michael, it sounds like this agreement has been made. Is this ever going to go to TSPC, or is there anything that needs to be adjudicated there before this is finalized?
So there's no agreement in place yet. Recology has simply reviewed it and let them know that they're okay with picking it up from El Camino Real in the manner that Larry described. But on our side, on the city side, there's a process for that. If they want a space to put those, for instance, we can't be guaranteed that there would be a space. I mean, what if the car is parked there on that particular time and day? So we have to go to TSPC. We're going to meet with Recology again, and if it is determined logistically that is what we need, then we'll have to go to TSPC for that space.
All right, Mr. Wang, thank you. Michael, thank you.
So I have a question layering upon Commissioner Durazo's comments. How about a loading zone for people moving in and out of the building? Have we talked about that? Are we giving any thought to that? Could we possibly use that same space for?
We could, but if you look at our parking plan, that was actually one of the comments from Joanna from your public work department. In the parking, we did allocate a loading and unloading space in the basement. So there is a specific unloading and unloading areas for the residents to move in and out. And we are talking about 23 condos, not apartments. There will be buyers for those condos. So we don't expect this to be moving in and out. The frequency is not that much. With 23 apartment owners, condominium owners in the future. So to answer your question in short, yes, there's a dedicated space in the parking garage for unloading and loading. And the frequency, we are not expecting this to be apartment moving in and out that much. We're expecting to have, I don't know how often the sales tax transaction, but it's 23 apartment condos, condo owners. That's it.
Okay.
Chair Biasotti, if I could add, so the planning code requirement, this loading requirement was changed with the with the 2020 change to the parking requirement. And it kicks in a loading zone for residential projects at 50 units. So this project is too small to actually require one of those loading zones. The loading zone that Larry spoke of doesn't meet the code requirements for a loading zone. It has to be a certain width, a certain height, clearance, and whatnot. So it is a loading space, but it doesn't meet the code definition of a loading zone.
Okay. Yeah, I was just trying to imagine backing a U-Haul truck in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments from anyone? Questions? Anything?
I just did want to agree with the general principle that, I mean, obviously, like if we're going to be wheeling out the garbage and leaving it at the curb, like you don't want to be in a situation where somebody's forgotten to move their car out of that spot. And so if you make that be just always a short-term, a place to unload groceries or whatever it is, make it a pickup drop-off area, it just seems like that's going to be, I'm sure the TSPC and the public works can work through that, but it seems like if you don't do something like that, you're going to have problems at some point with the garbage.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
I just wanted to let you know that we do have public works staff with us here tonight, and we will definitely take that into consideration as we move forward with trying to figure out whatever the process is going to be for how we're going to deal with the garbage pickup.
Very good. Thank you, Michael. Is there anyone else with comments, questions? Okay. How about anyone wishing to make a motion? We have two of them this evening. One for architectural review permit and one for a tentative.
I would be delighted to make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2021-06, approving the proposed categorical exemption under Section 15332 and approving architectural review permit 21014 to construct the new 3-story multifamily residential building.
Do we have a second?
I second it.
Okay, we have 2 seconds. Very good. Pamela, when you're ready, we could do a roll call vote for that one, please.
Sure. Chair Biasotti? Can you hear me?
Yes, aye.
Vice Chair Harmon?
Aye.
Commissioner Durazo?
Aye.
Commissioner Lithman?
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan?
Aye.
Motion passes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Now we have one for the tentative tract map. Would anyone care to make a motion for that one?
I make a motion to approve the tract map 21-003 to merge 6 existing parcels and to create 23 residential condominiums based on findings 1 to 11 and conditions, 153 conditions.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Pamela, once again for a roll call, please.
Of course. Mr. Chair? Chair Biasotti?
Aye.
Vice Chair Harmon?
Aye.
Commissioner Durazo?
Aye.
Commissioner Lithman?
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Good luck with your project, sir. Okay, that moves us to item 5. Items from staff.
Yes. So we'll take a minute for Ernest to take a 10 panelists from the previous item out of the room, or you can turn off your video. But I don't have much to report other than I would like to introduce Michael Laughlin, the new Planning and Housing Manager, to the Planning Commission. In addition to Ernest Garcia, if you have not met him, who is a temporary replacement while Madeline is on a medical leave. So while Ernest is busy taking people in and out, I will give the floor to Michael for just a few introduction of himself.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with the city of San Bruno. I've been a planner in the Bay Area for many years and also did some time in LA. I just really look forward to working with you. My last, the city I was working for was the town of Colma. But, you know, in my career, I've worked in San Carlos, San Mateo County, East Palo Alto. So quite a number of jurisdictions within San Mateo County. And and I'm looking forward to working with all of you and all the exciting things that are happening in San Bruno. It's a very exciting time.
Very good. Well, welcome to San Bruno, Michael.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. And Mr. Chair and Planning Commissioner, I'm not abandoning you, and it's just, I am very excited that we're almost fully staffed. So Michael will be taking on a lot more Planning Commission meetings, and I'll still be in the background. And in addition to that, I would like to introduce Ernest Garcia, in case you see him getting your signatures or trying to, tell you to do your cyber training. Ernest, this is Ernest. You want to say a few things?
Hi guys, nice to meet you all. I'm glad to be here with the City of City of San Bruno. So if there's anything that you would forward to Madeline, otherwise I would be more than willing to help you out. So just contact me at her extension. She should be out for the next few weeks, so I'll try to fill in, her big shoes that she's left, but to my best of my ability. Thank you guys for having me.
Welcome to San Bruno. It's nice to have you here.
And a side note, the reason that Ernest had a little slip is that he also works for South City Library. So venturing off to City of San Bruno, getting a book from South City, you may run into a familiar face. Other than that, that's all I have for tonight. Thank you very much for having the second meeting of the month and be able to kind of get this project ongoing. I know it's been a long process, and I'm just glad to see another milestone checked off. So that's all for tonight. Thank you.
Very good. So item 6 is public comments for items not on the agenda. And if it's okay, Pamela, I'd like to circle back to the comment that the gentleman made in our first public comments not on the agenda. And that was he was looking for whoever our representative for ABAG was. And I glossed over that without giving that to him.
So if I can, I think we have Mr. Wimpetsky's contact info. I would like to clarify with him whether or not he's looking for staff liaison or the council liaison. So we also have a city council member who sits on the ABAG board, and we also have our staff contact. So, and then if he's really interested in talking about RENA numbers and the ABAG, either myself or Michael Smith, we get too many Michaels, we'll be able to provide some discussion point with him. So we'll follow up separately.
Thank you very much, because I completely let that go when we were talking about it earlier. And
Not a problem.
And you also made the comment that perhaps we could take a look at South San Francisco's page and see if we can steal any ideas.
Well noted.
Very good. And then, Pamela, is there anyone in the public who would like to make a comment at this time for items not on the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I don't see any hands.
All right. Very good. Do we have any items from subcommittees or members? Anyone? No? All right. Well, with that, thank you, everyone. We are adjourned until October 19th at 7 p.m. Good night, all. Thank you for your hard work.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.